Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Neutron Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 12 of The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Journey to the Center of Carl, and Wilderness! And yes, I have to say it like that, that's how it's spelled. So, Journey to the Center of Carl involves Jimmy getting everyone in school sick. Sort of. Basically, he develops a new patch called the Neutronic Sick Patch, that when you place it on your hand, it makes you sick. And, well, the reason why he created that was so that, well, whoever wears it can just have a sick day. Now, originally, Jimmy just kind of held on to the patch for himself. But when it does get him a sick day, Carl and Sheen pop by, give him his homework so he doesn't go fall behind in school. And when he lets them know, oh no, not really sick, it's this patch I'm wearing, Carl and Sheen wanting to get patches of their own, and, well, Cindy and Libby overheard this and said that they wanted patches, and unfortunately, word got around to the other kids in school, and so all the students wanted patches of their own, so Jimmy and Co. just handed them out like they were fucking Tic Tacs. As such, the next day, all kids are home from school, much to Miss Fowle's chagrin, because she genuinely misses all the kids, except Sheen. But unfortunately for the kids, things kind of go downhill as all their parents want to try and help them by any means necessary. In the case of Hugh, he wants to stay with Jimmy for the whole week and give him homeschool. Cindy's mom is giving her acupuncture. Carl's dad wants to put him in a bubble. Libby's mom wants to have her be cured by a hornet sting, and we don't end up seeing this. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. There was a scam. But basically, we don't see this. But apparently Nick's mom uses leeches. Yeah, he gets traumatized by the event. Point is, though, the kids all collectively decide that maybe staying home sick from school is not worth all of this, and so all of them want to take off the patches, but before any of them get the chance, the patches dissolve into the kids' skin and enter their bloodstream. Basically, it makes it so they can never take them off. Now they're just sick forever. And unfortunately, none of the kids want to end up dealing with that. None of the kids want to deal with this, and so Jimmy realizes that he's got to figure out a solution for this. As such, he has Carl and Sheen sneak out and meet him back in his lab, and what he basically decides to do is that he needs to create a vaccine for this sickness. But in order to do that, he needs to get one of the germs from the virus, pull out the mitochondria, and, well, use that as a baseline for his vaccine. Which means that he will need to shrink down and go inside someone who is already infected. Which is where the title of the episode comes in, as Sheen immediately volunteers Carl. And as such, Carl is strapped down, Jimmy and Sheen end up shrinking down in Jimmy's hovercraft, and, well, as the title of the episode says, they take a journey to the center of Carl, going through his nasal cavity, seeing his brain, which is the size of a walnut. They enter his mouth and go down his stomach, go down to his stomach, and when they get to his stomach, it turns out Carl eats the toys that you get as prizes for those kids' meals, which, yeah, I can see what, that tracks, I guess. Brain size of walnut. I don't know. It's weird even for him. Either way, Jimmy and Sheen end up looking around Carl's insides to try and find the germs, and thankfully Jimmy finds one, but when he disturbs it, it ends up calling out to all the other germs, and so Jimmy realizes that he needs to get out of this as quickly as possible. And thankfully Sheen is able to provide a distraction by having him cry as they're attracted to some of the material, to one of the enzymes that's in tears, and so Jimmy is able to pull out the mitochondria, and so he gets back in the hovercraft, grabs Sheen, and they try to fly out of Carl. And thankfully, they do have a solution for that, because Sheen's dad, how he tried to help, because the thing is, Sheen's dad, to try and cure him, tried to use a method where he put pepper up Sheen's nose, and Sheen was all for it. He thought it was cool. And so he has the pepper on him right now, and so as they're flying out of Carl's body, Sheen immediately uses the pepper to basically get Carl to sneeze him and Jimmy out. And, well, it succeeds. They get out, Jimmy has the mitochondria, and we cut to the next day as all the student body are now cured thanks to the vaccine that Jimmy made. So everyone's all happy, hunky-dory, still dealing with the after effects of having to deal with their parents', well, home remedies, but the episode ends when a new kid comes to school who's apparently sick, and all the kids, frightened of getting sick again, all end up freaking out and running right out of the classroom. It's kind of sad. I really don't know, because that kid really did not deserve that, but whatever. But then that brings us to Wilderness. And what's going on is that Hugh wants to take Jimmy out camping for a weekend. And, well, Jimmy has roped Carl and Sheen into coming along with him, mostly via blackmail. He has pictures of them playing with a doll called Panoma Beach Debbie, and he basically says, you guys don't come with me, I'm spreading this around. And so they have no choice but to comply. As such, Unfortunately, though, Hugh wants to rough it in the biggest way possible, to the point where he doesn't want any electronics there, which means, that Jimmy can't bring Goddard along. Unfortunately, though, it's clear that Hugh is not the best camper, as when he checks out the car to see what Judy packed into it for survival, he throws out some things that are kind of essential for when you're going out in the wilderness, like bug spray, toilet paper, and a compass. And so, as he just thinks that these things will just weigh them down. And while Judy is a little suspect of her husband's camping methods, he says that he's got this, that he was a member of a Boy Scout group called the Acorn Scouts. He remembers their motto: "We are the Acorn Lads, something, something, the Acorn Lads." And no, that's not me forgetting the lines. That is basically how it goes. And it was the Acorn Lads, sorry. My point is, it's clear that Hugh has no idea what he's doing. But he's an idiot who thinks he knows what he's doing. And so that kind of makes him one of the more dangerous ones. And so he takes the kids away as Judy decides to take advantage of this rare moment of solitude to just basically eat cookie dough and watch gladiator movies with Goddard. So which I love. Goddard shakes his tail, ends up wagging his tail with the prospect. So that's great. But ultimately, Hugh takes the kids out, and unfortunately, again, going back to how he genuinely has no idea what he's doing, he does reach wilderness, but it's not a campsite. It's basically just off the road. It's just off the road, and it's basically even a road it's a part of wilderness you're not supposed to be anywhere near. But Hugh just says, oh, they're just going to camp and rough it in the best way possible. And so he and the kids end up just going through the woods, and they go in circles. It's clear they go in circles, as we see them crossing the same wood bridge 3 times, and the last few times Jimmy and Sheen have to drag Carl across each time. And basically they've been traveling so much that eventually when they do finally reach their campsite, the sun is already starting to go down, and as you can see the twilight in the air. And as such, Hugh basically just thinks that this is a secret campground. Well, the next best thing, it's got trees, so he thinks it's okay. And so he says he's going to go off and try and get a fire started while Jimmy and Co. basically set up the campsite. As such, once Hugh is out of range, well, Jimmy reveals that he's not planning to rough it the way that Hugh wants him to. As it turns out that he created a device called the Neutronic Camp-in-a-Box, which is basically just a box with a button on it that has Jimmy's signature symbol on it. And as such, all Jimmy has to do is just hit the button, throw the box in the air, and it explodes into a fully furnished campsite, complete with a bar, the lounge chairs, a TV, and, surprisingly, a Nintendo Entertainment System. Whatever. I guess he appreciates the classics. Point is, it's all fully furnished, it's all cool, and Jimmy and Co. and once Jimmy activates it, everyone's all good. It even comes with its own holographic butler named Rayburn, and he can basically provide anything you want. And it's not a matter of, the things he provides aren't real. No, he can actually make you Sundays food. Basically, if he wants something, he can get it for you. So hey, everyone's doing well. In the meantime, Hugh is not doing so well, does not fare as well, as he's trying to make fire from turtles. Yeah, you can kind of see the flaw in that, and he just thinks that he can't do anything. He even to the point where he even throws away a highly combustible material that could have started a fire, but he just thinks it's useless. But by the time Hugh gets back to the campsite and sees Jimmy and Co. just roughing it, in air quotes there, he actually is impressed because he thinks that Jimmy did this all by himself, and so he thinks that Jimmy definitely has what it takes to go into the outdoors. That is until Hugh sees Rayburn and realizes that this whole campsite was set up by a technology. As such, since, like I said, this is an anti-technology camping trip, he tells Jimmy that he's disappointed in him and that all of this has to go. As such, he asks Rayburn how he can shut this off, and Rayburn tells him to unplug a power pack underneath the bar. And, well, Hugh goes to unplug it, but just as he does, Rayburn tells him that it's very dangerous to do that when everything is fully active, because it can cause a large explosion caused by the power source going critical. As such, yeah, everyone runs. Everybody just fucking runs, and the campsite does end up going boom. And as such, and it's not just the stuff that Jimmy set up there that it's destroyed, it's all of their camping gear material. They are now alone in the wilderness with nothing to their names. And as such, Hugh thinks that this is nothing to worry about. It's Jimmy's fault after all. They don't have to do anything. But he's a true outdoorsman. He can find their way back to civilization based on true grit, moxie, and intelligence. And as such, he leads the children down a wild goose chase as he just points them in random directions, and eventually they get more lost than they were before. To the point where when night comes around, Hugh has no idea which way is up and down. And when Hugh finally realizes that he really kind of has doomed himself and these kids, he finally breaks down and admits that he was never really that much of an Acorn lad. Apparently, the other Acorn lads used to dunk him in water or some kind of other cider or whatever. Point is, he was a laughingstock when he was a kid, and this entire camping trip was, if anything, just him trying to prove to himself, or at least try and be a big man. Of course, Jimmy tells him that, yeah, while he may be a mediocre camper, he still thinks he's a good dad, and Hugh's at least okay. It actually is nice here. I think that's good to hear that. But unfortunately, the sweet moment doesn't last, as the group hears growling, and shortly after they hear that, they see a squirrel, followed by the actual source of the growling, a bear. And so the group ends up running, with the bear chasing after them. And eventually the chase ends with the group being cornered by a cliff. And as such, the group thinks that they're screwed, but Jimmy thinks that they can find a way out of it, because it turns out the cliff has phosphorus and nitrate, and if you can mix them together, they can make fire. As such, Jimmy gives these materials to Hugh, telling him that he's their only hope, and so Jimmy and his friends say that they'll distract the bear while Hugh gets a fire going. And while Hugh is doubtful about being able to do it, well, he actually does, as he manages to start a fire, get it on a stick, and thus uses this impromptu torch to try and scare the bear off. Only for the bear to just knock the torch aside and get ready to maul Hugh and the kids. Thankfully, no children meat is not on the table today, as who should show up but Goddard and Judy. As Goddard arrives and actually manages to scare the bear by doing a large roar, which causes the bear to go running. And, well, it turns out the reason why Judy and Goddard were able to find them is because Goddard detected the radiation from the explosion earlier, and it turns out that Judy had a chip implanted into Hugh's skin, so she used that to track the group down. So, hey, at the very least, they're safe now. And from there, the episode ends as everyone gets back to civilization, and, well, everyone decides to just kind of camp in Jimmy's backyard, with Jimmy even being able to pull out the camp in a box again, with Hugh relaxing in one of the recliners, while Rayburn brings him a Diet Purple Flurp. So, hey, all's well that ends well, I guess. So, but yeah, my thoughts on these segments. Well, first, Journey to the Center of Carl. I think it's enjoyable. I think it's an enjoyable premise. Again, it definitely is one. Again, it kind of operates on the whole Magic School Bus logic of going inside someone's body and basically exploring their insides, and it's suitably gross and sorry, dry throat. It's suitably gross and weird and just kind of fun, and just kind of the stuff you would expect from it, but it's enjoyable, and I honestly like what sets up the plot of the episode, because, let's be honest, when we were kids, we all wanted a sick day, and so the idea of Jimmy basically utilizing an invention that can allow kids to fake a sick day and pull it off well, I think that's a cool idea, and of course it'd be abused to hell and back. And I do like and honestly, I like how it goes awry, as it makes sense that something like the sick patch would basically dissolve into the skin of the person, because, well, if you have a device that can actually make you sick by taking it on and off, it does kind of need to integrate with your biological systems. And so eventually, if you overdo it, well, then eventually will become more integrated with your person to the point where it'll just be a part of you. And so seeing it go wrong actually does make sense. And I do like that the consequences do immediately bite all the kids and their collective asses, because, well, Of course the kids' parents would want to help their kids. And every parent has their own unique ways of wanting to help the kids. And unfortunately, in some cases, they're just weird methods. Again, acupuncture, leeches, a hornet, even the pepper up the nose. That's all weird. Actually, the pepper up the nose might make more sense, because if you sneeze out all the gunk, it might actually help. And Sheen was very much okay with doing that thing, so oh. But at the very least, I like that those are the consequences, and it is a nice way of basically getting the kids right where they didn't want to be hit, as they all thought that they just get a nice, cool sick day, and their parents all collectively said, "Nuh-uh, we're going to do something about that." And I kind of love that, and so once the sick patch becomes integrated into their systems, I like that Jimmy does need to find a way to fix it right away. And again, I like that. I will say, I guess the actual journey to the center of Carl doesn't feel as much of a focus in this episode as it should be. Maybe if it had happened like earlier in the segment, and then the last 2/3 of it were them going through Carl, I think it would have been more appropriate of a title. But having it be relegated to basically what is the last third of an 11-minute segment, it doesn't really hit as well, and it doesn't really carry as much urgency, I guess, because honestly, there really is no time limit for everyone being sick, especially since they're all suffering the consequences of their parents wanting to help them for like one day, and Jimmy and well, it's clear they all have means of getting out of this because Carl and Sheen are able to sneak out of their houses. Carl especially because he was put in a bubble. So I guess I think that it doesn't really feel as urgent as the episode wants you to think it is. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it does still feel like this is a problem because, well, the patch is supposed to make you sick, and the only way to fix it is to take it off, and if it merges with your body, then guess what? You're sick forever, so that's a problem. But at the very least, but again, the actual journey to the center of Carl just doesn't feel as hectic as it's supposed to be. Well, okay, I take that back. The actual chase out of Carl's system feels a bit more hectic, but otherwise, up until that chase scene, it doesn't feel like there's any real push and rush for everything. Although it is kind of fun seeing Jimmy and Sheen just kind of explore around Carl, make comments about his biology, like the snot up his nose, his tiny brain, and again, the fact that he ate toys. That's weird even for Carl. So at the very least, I guess that's enjoyable. It's just that I wish that the actual event of the episode was titled for had a bit more significance in the grand scheme of the story. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a central part of the story because, again, Jimmy and Sheen have to go inside Carl in order to get the mitochondria that will make the vaccine for the sickness. It's still, but at the same time, I feel like it should have had a little bit more emphasis. Although, again, there is still plenty of good humor in the episode. My favorite, of course, is when Miss Fowl is missing all the kids, we see her teaching a classroom of empty desks. And so what she does is that she goes through the lesson plan, and then whenever she calls on a student, she rushes to that student's desk and pretends to be the student, and it's actually pretty funny. And then when she's done pretending, she's like, "Oh, I miss them all so much, except Sheen." I love that. It's a great segment, and by the end, when she's happy to see them back, and then you see the kid that actually has a cold that causing the whole student body to freak out. It's kind of funny, though. Again, I feel sorry for the girl. She really did not do anything. She just has a cold, and everyone ran away from her. And even her expression by the end definitely is the one that kind of gives the impression that she's not exactly taking the rejection well. So what can you do? But overall, enjoyable. Then there's Wilderness. This one. Okay, I openly admit I didn't enjoy this one as much as the other segment. I'd hesitate to call it awful, but for me, this one feels. I don't really know how to feel about this one. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's good, but I didn't hate it. I don't know. It's just not enjoyable as much as I would like it to be, because the whole crux of this episode is that it's supposed to be a wilderness story, but as the title of the segment implies. Well, it's basically just doomed from the start, because Jimmy and Co are traveling into the wilderness with a scoutmaster who, from the outset, is shown has absolutely no idea what he's doing, and that's a problem. Now, there are plenty of stories where you have a character that goes out camping and they just don't enjoy it at all. And sometimes it's basically a matter of they just need to learn to rough it and figure things out to survive on their own, and they'll eventually learn a greater appreciation for it. The only problem is, again, Hugh. From the outset, they do showcase that he's kind of a moron. And you could argue that the story is mostly a Hugh story. But at the same time, you do have Jimmy overstepping a little, because in the middle of this segment, you have him basically throw his dad's whole mantra of no technology in nature right out the fucking window when Jimmy ends up pulling out the Neutronic camp in a box, and that is basically going against everything. Now, I will still give crap that because Hugh unplugged the campsite prematurely and caused everything to blow up, it left everyone without supplies. But at the same time, it's clear that I feel like it would have been nicer if Jimmy tried to humor his dad a little, but it turned out that he was a better camper than Hugh, and Hugh basically would just go. And he would start getting jealous of his son, because I think that would have made more sense. I mean, because here's the thing. When Hugh thought that the campsite was a natural one, that Jimmy erected it all by himself, he was happy. He was proud. And he basically went, "Oh, Jimmy, you do got those foresting genes in you anyway. I'm proud of you, kid." And immediately backpedaled when he realized that the whole campsite was created via one of Jimmy's devices. Now again, if this was a better story, then maybe Hugh would have had more ground to stand on in that. But the fact that Hugh has abso-fucking-lutely no idea what he's doing immediately kind of disheartens it because he was so dead set on this being a pure roughing it kind of journey that he had cost everyone the things that they needed. In other words, the bits of camping material that they actually brought along and weren't part of the Neutronic campsite in a box. So it kind of undermines it. And I get it. By the end of the episode, Hugh admits that, yeah, he did it horribly, and then when he and the kids are put in danger, he has to actually try and prove himself utilizing some knowledge. But even that kind of gets undermined, as even the one successful thing that he did in the entire episode, which was make fire for a torch, is undermined because the bear that he was using, that he was trying to threaten it with, knocked it aside, and by the end, Judy had to come in and save the group. And while I'm glad for that, and I do kind of like that by the end, and I do kind of find it funny that by the end, Hugh basically just kind of decides, you know what, maybe it's better if we do have some modern amenities there, as we see everyone camping in Jimmy's backyard with a new Neutronic campsite set up. But it just kind of, for the majority of the episode, it just makes me wonder what the hell the conflict and plot are supposed to be. Is it supposed to be about Jimmy and co learning to rough it in the wilderness? Well, obviously not, because their scoutmaster is an idiot. Is it about Hugh learning to deal with his inadequacies and accept his limitations and realize that maybe he could use some help now and then? Well, maybe, but then why is that middle segment in there where Jimmy ends up going against the grain and creates something that is so that goes to such the opposite extreme of what Hugh wants that it's basically like he's spitting in his face a little? I don't know. I don't understand it. And even by the end, it doesn't feel like anything was really accomplished. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do have I do like that Jimmy tells his dad, yeah, you may be a mediocre camper, but I still think you're a great dad. But at the same time, I think it would have been better. Like, I feel like things would have been better if if Jimmy was actually a good camper. Maybe he is told you can't bring any technology, and while Jimmy doesn't exactly like that, he starts trying to take up his dad's methods, and he actually takes to them well. And so Hugh is at first proud of Jimmy, but as the episode goes along, he maybe starts getting more jealous of Jimmy and wants to try and prove he's better. And so when Jimmy is starting to do things better, Hugh starts getting upset, and he does accidentally sabotage the campsite. Maybe he does something wrong, and he still and then likewise he thinks that it's okay, everyone, I can figure out how to get us home. And then by the time we get to the final act of the segment where everyone's lost, he admits, okay, yeah, I was bad at this. I did everything wrong. I'm sorry. And so Jimmy, and thus that could make everything feel much more complete. It's just if it wasn't for the middle segment with Jimmy basically, like I said, going to the opposite extreme, I think that would have been a good plot of Hugh basically learning to accept his faults, try and find strength where he could, and even the ending where he does decide, maybe we could just stay home and camp. I think that would have been better. It's just, again, I don't really understand what the central conflict or focus of the segment is, and as a result, I don't enjoy this segment as much as other ones. It doesn't mean I despise it by any means. Like, I wasn't offended by watching it. I wasn't disgusted by it. There's plenty of fun visual gags that go throughout the episode. Again, I loved when Hugh tried to start a fire. He did find a combustible material and tossed it aside as useless, and it exploded right behind his back. That's hilarious. But it's just, plot-wise, the segment didn't really do it for me. Although I do like that when Judy was left home alone and decided to watch Gladiator movies, she again just decided to watch them with Goddard. It's a little thing, but I love how Jimmy's parents are just so used to Jimmy's inventions that they just consider that it's just part of their daily lives. Goddard is the family dog, despite him being mechanical, and likewise, when the campsite went boom, I like that Goddard was the one that zeroed in on it. But, so, I think that would have been nice. Although, I guess you could argue that the middle segment was possibly necessary, because the campsite going boom is what alerted Judy that, hey, something is wrong with my boys, I might want to go and get them. So, you could argue that was probably essential for the story. It's just that maybe it would have been better if maybe it was like a little thing that Jimmy did, or that like a little thing that Jimmy did. I don't know. So I don't know. It's just, again, overall, I didn't really understand the overall. I don't think the segment was that great. I was like I said, it wasn't awful. Definitely had some good gags in there and here now and then, but plot wise, didn't do it for me, and I wasn't as entertained as I thought I would be. So there you go. But yeah, that's really all I have to say. Journey to Center of Carl, enjoyable, fun premise. Definitely is a fun ride. Wilderness, not awful, but not my cup of tea. So take that what you will. So yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you for watching. As always, I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll hopefully see you next week. Take care.